Welcome back to Kubernetes Crashcasts. I'm Sheila, and I'm here with Victor to dive deeper into the fascinating world of Kubernetes. Before we begin, I'd like to remind our listeners that if you're enjoying our content, please take a moment to rate our podcast on your preferred platform. Your support means the world to us. Today, we're continuing our exploration of Kubernetes architecture, and we'll be focusing on the declarative model. But first, let's start with a quick quiz question for our listeners. Victor, would you like to do the honors?
Absolutely, Sheila. Here's a brain teaser for our listeners. In Kubernetes, what's the primary file format used to describe the desired state of your applications and infrastructure?
Ooh, that's an intriguing question, Victor. It really gets to the heart of how we interact with Kubernetes. I'm sure our listeners are pondering their answer right now. While they think about it, let's dive into our topic for today, the declarative model in Kubernetes. Victor, could you start by explaining what we mean by declarative in this context?
Certainly, Sheila. The declarative model is a fundamental concept in Kubernetes. It's an approach where you describe the desired state of your system rather than providing step-by-step instructions on how to achieve that state. In other words, you tell Kubernetes what you want, not how to do it.
That's interesting. So it's like telling a chef what dish you want, instead of giving them a detailed recipe. Can you elaborate on how this differs from other approaches?
Great analogy, Sheila. Yes, it's very much like that. To contrast, let's consider the imperative approach, which is more like giving that step-by-step recipe. In an imperative model, you'd say, first, create this pod, then create this service. Now scale the deployment to 3 replicas. But with the declarative model in Kubernetes, you simply describe your desired end state in a file, typically using YAML, and Kubernetes figures out how to make it happen.
I see. So we're working with YAML files to describe our desired state. But how does Kubernetes actually make this happen? It seems almost magical.
It does seem magical, doesn't it? The key is Kubernetes reconciliation loop. Once you submit your YAML manifest describing the desired state, Kubernetes constantly compares the current state of the cluster to this desired state. If there are any differences, it takes actions to reconcile them.
That's fascinating. So, Kubernetes is constantly working to maintain the state we've declared. What are some benefits of this approach?
Great question. There are several benefits. First, it makes your configurations more readable and self-documenting. Anyone can look at your YAML file and understand what the system should look like. Second, it's idempotent. You can apply the same configuration multiple times without changing the result. This is great for reliability and reproducibility. Lastly, it enables GitOps practices, where your infrastructure configuration can be version controlled just like your application code.
Those are some compelling advantages. I can see why Kubernetes adopted this model, but surely there must be some challenges or potential pitfalls. What should our listeners be aware of?
You're right, Sheila. While the declarative model is powerful, it can take some getting used to, especially for those coming from more traditional imperative backgrounds. One common pitfall is trying to mix declarative and imperative approaches, which can lead to confusion and inconsistencies. It's important to embrace the declarative model fully and resist the temptation to make manual, imperative changes to your cluster.
That's a great point, Victor. It sounds like consistency is key. Now, I'm curious about how this declarative model compares to other technologies. Are there other systems that use a similar approach?
Absolutely. The declarative model isn't unique to Kubernetes, although it's a prime example. Infrastructure as code tools like Terraform also use a declarative approach. Even configuration management tools like Ansible, while often used imperatively, can be used in a declarative manner. The trend towards declarative models is part of a broader shift in IT towards more automated, reproducible, and version-controlled infrastructure.
That's really interesting to see how it fits into the bigger picture of IT trends. Now, for our listeners who are just getting started with Kubernetes, do you have any tips or best practices for working with the declarative model?
Certainly. My top tip would be to start small. Begin with simple YAML manifests for individual resources and gradually build up to more complex configurations. Always use version control for your manifests, and consider using tools like Helm or Customize to manage more complex deployments. And remember, the kubectl apply command is your friend. It's the primary way to declaratively update resources in your cluster.
Those are great tips, Victor. I think our listeners will find them very helpful. Now, before we wrap up, I think it's time to reveal the answer to our quiz question. Victor, would you like to do the honors?
Of course, the answer to our quiz question is YAML. While Kubernetes can work with JSON as well, YAML, which stands for YAML Ain't Markup Language, is the most commonly used format for defining resources in Kubernetes due to its readability and conciseness.
Thank you, Victor. To summarize what we've learned today, Kubernetes uses a declarative model where we describe our desired state in YAML files. This approach offers benefits like readability, idempotency, and compatibility with GitOps practices. The key to making it work is Kubernetes reconciliation loop, which constantly works to match the current state with the desired state. And with that, we've reached the end of today's episode. Thank you all for listening to Kubernetes Crashcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode, please visit crashcasts.com, join our Discord community, or support us on Patreon. Your engagement helps us create better content for you. Until next time, keep declaratively defining your Kubernetes dreams.